Hi, come on into the Bruce channel. I'm Bruce. And what is all this, you ask? Well, no one knows for sure, including me. And that was a year ago, as we launched the Bruce channel. Hi, and welcome to the Bruce channel. I'm Bruce, and wow, it's been a very busy time. So there were our first two clips, one from 2 years ago, and then the second one from roughly a year later. The first one was our inaugural show. This year, I wasn't able to get an episode up in advance of Thanksgiving, and I regret that, probably for a couple of reasons. One, I'm inherently a sucker for routines and tradition, so I would have liked to put on the same clothes and would have liked to authentically offer the wish that your Thanksgiving would be terrific. Well, it's now past tense. Equally authentic, I hope that it was a terrific Thanksgiving. All right. Today won't be a long show, but there are a couple of things worth mentioning. One, the weather here, depending on where you are. I don't know if the western North Carolina wildfires have made your local news, but okay, remember back in early October when Hurricane Matthew hit North Carolina? The forecast had been that it was to have impacted North Carolina the least of all the states, with a slight deviation in its path, and we instead got hit the hardest. Now, not so much me, a little bit of wind, a little bit of rain, but progressively east and south of where I am. The wind damage was significant, but the flooding was catastrophic. Oh, and a reminder, I was filming in Raleigh that day, October 8th. Now, more on that in a bit, but the high school sports playoff, football, cross country, everything had to be postponed, pushed back, because they were out of school in the east for, in some cases, 2 weeks. What else? Yeah. The point is, where I live and points west, that rain from Matthew on October 8th was the last measurable rain we got until overnight into Thanksgiving. And that wasn't a lot, but it did at least make the ground wet. So it is no wonder that the wildfires were going so strong. Burning bans have been in place. Last weekend, we here in the Triad, that's Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point, we were able to smell and see smoke from some of the fires. And up in the mountains last weekend, there were wind gusts of about 60 miles an hour. Not a typical day in paradise, I'll tell you that. In fact, the western counties have been in the most extreme drought classification possible. So it was indeed good to get some rain. All right, so on my deadline, it is impossible for me to know how college football shakes out over this weekend, but this is rivalry weekend. LSU versus Texas A&M, the University of North Carolina versus North Carolina State. Now understand, not all of these games have implications for rankings or playoffs, but it is the weekend when teams that most hate each other match up. Texas versus Texas Christian, Arizona versus Arizona State, Alabama versus Auburn. But some of these games, they do have wider implications. My Buckeyes are ranked number 2, and they face their arch rival, Michigan, who this year happens to be ranked number 3. Big game between the two. Last time I recall it being this big was 10 years ago when Ohio State was number 1 and Michigan number 2. Wow. Oh, and then next weekend, all across the country, depending how things shake out this weekend, the conferences will all have their conference championships. And then, after that, of course, the playoff committee will announce who makes it into only the 3rd playoffs ever. It's always quite a ride. And the Big Ten championship is primetime next weekend. I think it's 8 o'clock. So, I spoke of tradition. On December 10th, they'll wrap up the season with a traditional game. It may be the only game that day. It's the annual Army-Navy game. Okay, not much on politics today. The election was held, and I'll repeat what I said. My fear is that the president-elect is unqualified. My hope is that he surprises me and does a good job. I must say I'm delighted with his choice of Nikki Haley for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. And I'm surprised that his one-time opponent, Dr. Ben Carson, is picked for Health and Human Services. Not that that's a bad fit, but I thought he was a lead pipe cinch for Surgeon General. Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. For most of my adult life, I weighed a little over 100 pounds, not much more than in this picture taken when I was about 17 and considering becoming a jockey. But as is often true, once I crossed into my 40s, extra weight came and it stayed. For years I tried to lose, instead gained, and ended up 153 pounds. And I'm embarrassed to show you this video. Then I learned that it isn't about calories and exercise, but instead it's about what you eat. You might say, sure, ice cream makes you fat. But there were surprises, things like orange juice not being such a wise choice if you're trying to lose weight. So I just made some basic changes to what I ate, not how much, and the weight just fell off. Now, nearly 3 years later, it is still off. And don't misunderstand, I'm eating foods I like, not bamboo shoots. Friends ask me how I did it so often, I put it in a book. It's available as an ebook for all platforms, and the print edition is available at barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. Hey, you can shrink too. Welcome back. Remember, you can write to us at thebrucechannel@yahoo.com, and you can watch all of our previous shows at tinyworld.com, easy for me to say, /Bruce Channel, or at our Facebook page. All right. Last show, I used the term nanosecond, which is a really brief moment of time. And I remember Grace Hopper, I think that was her name, the computer pioneer, showing Johnny Carson, I think it was Johnny Carson, a nanosecond. She did it in this way. You know, light travels 186,000 miles in 1 second. She held up a piece of fiberglass, maybe this long. She said, that's how far it can travel in a nanosecond. Well, new news. The smallest amount of time ever measured, I don't mean theorized, but measured, the zeptosecond. I read how they measured it. Is it a hydrogen electron leaving? But you know what? I have no idea what that means or how they did it. Think of this though. Imagine a billionth, with a B, a billionth of a second. How much is a zeptosecond? Unimaginable. 1 trillionth of that 1 billionth of a second. Wow. You know how they say time flies when you're having fun? I wonder if you can turn it around so that when the Browns are playing, will it get better if I think of zeptoseconds? You know, don't you, we live in extraordinary times. And of course you do. But if you're like me, it's sometimes easy to forget just how extraordinary the times are. You know, used to watch the clock on a long-distance call, not wanting to amass too much in charges. Now, Skype, Facebook, I can talk to you and I can see you anywhere across the world. Assuming internet, of course, but you know, we can talk for 24, 40 hours straight. And of course, the repository that is YouTube. Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, but what is extraordinary is how much out there is available. The word unimaginable comes to mind a couple of times today. You know, I wanted to make cochonneau. What's that? It is pork jelly pig's feet, a dish that my grandmother used to make, but one I haven't had since she died decades and decades ago. Sure, there are recipes online. There are videos on how to make it. There are videos of how to change the instrument cluster in your car, which I've availed myself up, and there's history. Now again, I've spoken with awe at the restraint President Kennedy exercised during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But you know what? You can show your kids and your grandkids, and they can show theirs.
To halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba is being initiated. All ships of any kind bound for Cuba, from whatever nation or port, where they're found to contain cargoes of offensive weapons, be turned back. It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union. I call upon Chairman Khrushchev to halt and eliminate this clandestine, reckless, and provocative threat to world peace, and to stable relations between our two nations. I call upon him further to abandon this course of world domination and to join in an historic effort to end the perilous arms race and to transform the history of man.
In 1976, after 20 years of estrangement, formerly partnered, they were comedy superstars, but they had been estranged for 20 years, and mutual friend to them both, Frank Sinatra, brought Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin together in a new era of rapprochement.
Listen, I have a friend who loves what you do every year and who just wanted to come out. Would you send my friend out, please? Where is he? Would you send him out here? Come here. All right, break it up. Break it up. What is this here? Break it up. I think it's about time, don't you?
And thank you.
Yeah, I think it's about time.
You know, it seems like we haven't seen each other for 20 years.
Well, you know, there was all those rumors about our breaking up, and then when I started the show and you weren't here, I believed it. So you working?
I work 6 weeks a year at the Megum.
The Megum?
And 6 days I do a roast. And
Would you excuse us a minute?
I remember, too, seeing a little girl, a prodigy, really. A little girl astonished Danny Thomas with her prowess at the piano. It's cute.
Oh, no, don't touch, dear. I got work to do. That's not a toy. Now, you go and play with Linda. Go play like a little girl, huh? No, sweetheart. Mustn't touch it. That's a piano, see? Piano. And it goes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. See? Now get lost. Look, if you want to bang it one time, okay. There. Now get out of here.
That little girl's name is Ginny Chu, and you can watch the entire episode on YouTube. Do you know what? She still performs. This is her earlier this year at the Liliu Theater. I think that's in Honolulu. YouTube. It is amazing. And so are the times that we live in. If we can avoid blowing ourselves up, and actually work for the betterment of the planet and each other's betterment, no telling what we might be able to do. I don't know if that's possible, though. Maybe. But if we're to do it, we have to do it by using our intellect instead of our gut. Jon Stewart, I think just within the last week and a half or so, said that diversity isn't natural. Tribal is natural. The thing is, our spears are so much worse. We can hope. We can hope that what Lincoln called our better angels are the ones driving. Okay, word again from one of the producers of Obamaland. Just this week, he sent word that the editing is done. Fini. But one of those final edits created a sequence that the dialogue didn't explain well enough. So, one more voiceover needed for the film's narration, so that's something. And speaking of voiceover, there was a casting notice for voiceover, someone who could sound like Charles Bronson. I've been an entertainer since first grade, and although my live act has always included riffs of people whose voice you'd like to recognize, I've never been an impressionist in the style of Rich Little or Sammy Davis Jr. or others. Still, I think I can mimic a bit, so I sent an audition recording. The producers then sent me back a clip which had Charles Bronson in it, to try and imitate. And they're not using this clip, but they just wanted to see if I could hit Charles Bronson notes. So I got it, I sent it back, take a look.
Hey, I don't think I know you.
Hey, I don't think I know you.
Don't think I ever hired you before either.
Don't think I ever hired you before either.
One thing I know for sure, I never will.
One thing I know for sure, I never will.
I know you need the work, and I know you want to work. I already hired a crew. The man made a mistake.
I know you need the work, and I know you want to work. I already hired a crew. Man made a mistake. And I got the part. More voiceover. Bronson, had a unique way of speaking, and I was talking to a friend about it. And he thought, Bronson was born in Europe, wasn't he? And we did a little quick research. Turns out he's born near Johnstown, Pennsylvania, but a little bit of research. He didn't speak English until he was a teenager. And I guess that obviously contributed to his unique way of speaking. Anyway, that will do it for this week. Voiceovers may or may not get in the way of a show next week, but every step is a step, right? So, I hope that your Thanksgiving was terrific, that your favorite teams all win, that we recall with fondness solo gigolos, yeah, and that your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.